Oh, good evening, everybody. I want to thank Libby Wolf and Chana Etke Pfefferman for organizing our monthly class Rosh Chodesh gathering. I was talking to a few people and I said, does your class have a WhatsApp chat? They said, yes, but we don't do what your class does. And every month you get together. So it's really a beautiful thing. So thank you, Libby, and thank you, Chana Etke. So a woman gets on the bus and the bus driver says to her, Giveret, shlosha shkalim bevakasha. So she puts her hand over her heart and she says, if only you knew what I had. So the bus driver says, okay, lech. So she goes on the bus and the bus is mobbed and she wants to get on to the back to a seat. So she puts her hand over her heart and she says, if only you knew what I had. And everybody parts and they let her through to the bus. And she leans over a guy and again, she puts her hand over her heart. If only you knew what I had. So he says, okay. He gets up, gives her the seat. And there's a woman watching this whole thing transpire. And as she gets off the bus, she looks at the woman and she says, Giveret, what do you have? She says, I have chutzpah. Chutzpah.
Oh, God.
We have to start with a joke because Misha Nichnas Adar Marvin Besimcha. And tonight I thought that I would share two interesting topics that really resonate with me, and I hope it will resonate with you. One of them is Parshas Truma, an insight from Parshas Truma, and the other one is Misha Nichnas Adar Marvin Besimcha. And in addition, the fact that this year, Adar is a leap year, which is very significant. In 1994, a book was published. It was called The Jew and the Lotus. And in that book, there's a story that the Dalai Lama, who was exiled from Tibet and ended up in northern India, asked to meet with a group of Jewish scholars. And when he met with them, he asked them, how is it possible that the Jewish people who have been exiled from Eretz Yisrael, from the land of Israel for hundreds of years, still retain their religion, their identity, their Judaism, their customs, their traditions? How did you people do it? In other words, what advice can you give me who have been exiled from Tibet? So in this week's Parshas Truma, Vasali Mikdash Reshachanti V'Seicham, there's a very interesting nuance where the Eibusher tells, of course, Moshe and the architect Betzalel how to build every section, every vessel, every part of the Mishkan. And then the Eibusher says to Moshe, and with the vessels, you have to put in poles. You have to make poles with rings. They get inserted into the vessels. When you're traveling, you carry with the poles. And when you're not traveling, you remove the poles, except with the Aron. The Aron, the ark that contained both sets of luchais, the broken luchais and the whole luchais. In regard to the Aron, says the Eibusher, those poles have to be permanently affixed to the ark. They cannot be removable poles. Now, all the Mefarshim jump in and ask a question. What is the distinction between permanent poles in the Aron and removable poles in the other vessels? So I'll share one or two Mefarshim, and then I'll share what the Rebbe says in a Sikha. So one of the Mefarshim says, well, it's logistics, it's practical. The vessels are in the outer chambers of the Mishkan. It's very crowded. The Kohanim are doing the Avodah. If they have the poles sticking out, they bump into the poles. It takes up so much room. You know, remember, did you ever bump your shins on your bed frame? So space-wise and practical, you take out the poles and you put them aside. And when you travel, you put them back in. So why would the Aron or the poles left in permanently? Because who goes into the Kodesh Kodashim? The Kohen Gadol, and only on Yom Kippur. So there, it's not a matter of space. Another Mefarsh says, well, you know, many times that Eibusher would tell Bnei Yisrael to hastily travel, So they had to quickly pack everything up. And if they inadvertently did not insert the poles into the Aron properly, then the Aron could fall, chas v'shalom, would be a chilul Hashem, a desecration. Chas v'shalom, you drop a Torah, it's terrible. So why with the other vessels, are they removable? Because the Aron is the most holy vessel in the Mishkan. So to the Aron, you have to affix them permanently. And now I'd like to share a deeper insight from the Rebbe. What were the vessels all about? The Shulchan is symbolic of Keser Malchus, the crown of royalty. The Mizbeach, Keser Kahuna, the crown of priesthood. Those vessels were tied to the geography of Eretz Yisrael. When we were in Eretz Yisrael, we have Keser Malchus, we have Keser Kahuna. Out of Eretz Yisrael, no. They're not meant to travel out of Eretz Yisrael, but the Ark, the Torah, the Luchais, the poles are permanently affixed because wherever we are, the Torah is. Wherever the Torah is, we are. Whether we're in Uruguay, Chabad house in Tibet, on the moon, wherever a Jew is, the Torah is. The Torah is not tied to land, to geography. That's why the poles were permanently affixed. Queen Victoria, Queen of England, was pregnant with the heir, her heir, future heir, hopefully. She was married to Prince Albert of Hanover, Germany, and they went on a baby moon. Before giving birth, they went on vacation to Hanover, where Prince Albert had his palace. And during their baby moon, during the vacation, she goes into premature labor, and there's a panic. If she gives birth on German soil, the baby cannot be heir to the throne of England because he or she was born in Germany. They don't know what to do. Sir Moses Montefiore was visiting Germany at the time. He was a chief advisor to the Queen. He happened to be there, and he heard her predicament, and he went to Shul, and the chief rabbi of the Hanover Shul was Rabbi Nosson Adler. So he told him the situation with the Queen. So Rabbi Nosson Adler gave him brilliant advice, and he ran back to the palace, and in the name of Rabbi Adler, he told the Queen the following: you have to be put on the nearest English warship, which happened to be the Arch Royal, which was in the water nearby, and that ship should go out into international waters, and if a baby is born on an English warship in international waters, it takes on the citizenship of the ship, which is English. And Kachaya. And she went onto the ship, they quickly went out into international waters, and King George VII, he became King George VII, obviously, was born on this ship, and she never forgot the chesed of Rabbi Adler. Before I continue the thought process, I want to just give you the footnote, what happens. A few years later, she's reading the newspaper, and she reads that the Duke Shul, the Duke's synagogue in London, the largest synagogue in London, is looking for a rabbi. So she sends a note to the synagogue saying, I would suggest Rabbi Nathan Adler from Hanover, Germany. And when the Queen says something, you do it. He becomes now the rabbi of the Duke's synagogue. And then she meets with her parliament, and she institutes a chief rabbi of the United Kingdom. The sun never sets on the British Empire. And that's how later on, Rabbi Sir Jonathan Sacks, Alav Shalom, became the chief rabbi. So now, how did Rabbi Adler think of this idea? How did he know she should go onto the warship and the baby will be born? Because we Jews have always known how to retain our identity on foreign soils. We always knew how to keep Yiddishkeit wherever we are. Which just brings me to another little cute story about a poet, a German poet. I think his name was Heinrich. You know, all Germans have the name Heinrich. But anyway, he was a Jew. He wanted to get into university. They didn't let. He was Jewish, so he baptizes himself. And he gets into the university, and the intelligentsia, the philosophers and the poets and the writers, they had their round table meetings, and they're sitting there bashing the Jews, and they say, even the Jews, they're going to be extinct. They're dispersed, and they don't even have a homeland anymore. So Heinrich says, gentlemen, the Jews have a homeland. It's a traveling homeland, and it's called their Torah, their Bible. So when the Eibusher tells Moshe to construct the ark with permanent poles, what he was telling Moshe is the Torah goes wherever you go. The Torah goes wherever the Jewish people go. It's not tied to geography. It's not tied to land. It belongs wherever there's a neshama, a Jewish neshama, there is where the Torah is found. And that's what they told the Dalai Lama, in case you're wondering. And now I wanted to share a gedank from Misha Nichnas Adar, Marbim B'Simcha, and specifically the concept of the Iber, the leap year, that Adar this year is a leap year. Another joke, huh? Or no? So one more little joke. So the inventor of the guillotine was an Englishman. He was a very cruel guy. So the first run of the guillotine, he makes it that all the 3 prisoners that he arrests should face up, facing the guillotine. Most times when you use the guillotine, you put a pillowcase over the head of the Nebuch, the prisoner, so he doesn't see himself being, beheaded. But this guy is very cruel. He makes sure they're facing the guillotine. So he arrests a Jew, a lawyer, and an engineer. The Jew gets put under the guillotine, Nebuch, he's looking up, and as it's about to strike, a miracle happens, it gets stuck. And the rule is, if it malfunctions, the prisoner goes free. So the Jewish fellow goes free. Now they put the lawyer under. And also, as it's about to strike, this malfunction, and he also goes free, Baruch Hashem. The engineer, they put him under, and it's coming down, and he says, stop. They go, what? I think I figured out the malfunction, he says. I think I figured out why it's not working. Anybody here an engineer? Okay. So Misha Nichnas Adam Marbim B'Simcha. And the Rebbe says something really beautiful, that when you have a leap year, you have 2 months together, 2 Adars, it's 60 days. If you look in Shulchan Aruch, says the Rebbe, there's a halacha batul b'shishim. If a foreign object falls into a pot and it's 60% in volume more than the non-permissible item, it's permissible because it's batul b'shishim, the rule of 60. So the Rebbe says the fact that we have a double Adar, the 60, means that any negativity in our lives can be nullified and transformed in these days. So if you're feeling down and out, you're feeling depressed, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling uncertain, you're feeling anxiety, you're feeling fear, you're feeling pain, you're feeling anguish, anything. These 60 days is an opportunity not only to nullify the negativity, but to transform it. And then the Rebbe asks a question. What do we need a leap year for? What do we need a leap year for? So you know why we have a leap year, to just quickly review, is because in the Torah it says Pesach must come in the spring months. So we follow the lunar calendar, and the lunar calendar is 354 days. The solar calendar, which is in charge of seasons and months, is 365 days. So every few years, we make an adjustment. We add a second Adar. So we have a leap year. And the Gemara explains why it has to be in the spring. One reason is because the Jewish people in the muddy, rainy, icy weather could not get to Yerushalayim to bring a carbon. Also, many times the barley wasn't ripe. So it had to be in the spring. Just sharing a few insights. But the Rebbe continues and says, if the Eibishter wanted Pesach to be in the spring, why go through the trouble of giving us a lunar calendar? Why not be like everybody else? The whole world celebrates, utilizes the solar calendar. Why do we have to be different when it comes to the calendar? Why not also have a solar calendar? It'll be easy, it's simple, you don't have to add a month, you don't have to worry. Pesach will always come in the spring.
Pirates. And what happens is, this is from our kid's book, actually, this is Jesse. And when the kids are going from the pirate ship onto the dinghy to go look for hidden treasure, Jesse starts swinging on the rope instead of going down carefully.
So, why not just stick with the solar calendar? Why did the Eibishter give us the lunar calendar? So let's see, when did the Eibishter give us the lunar calendar? If you go in Parshas Bay, the Eibishter calls Moshe and Aaron. He says, Chodesh hazeh lachem Rosh Chodeshim. Right before they leave Mitzrayim, the Eibishter gives them their first mitzvah, keep a lunar calendar, a calendar according to the lunar cycle. And Rashi says Moshe and Aaron don't know what the Eibishter is talking about. There's a crescent, there's a sliver, you have witnesses, they'll see the sliver of the moon, and then the moon will wax and it'll wane, it'll be a full moon, it'll be an invisible moon. They didn't know what the Eibishter was talking about. So they were actually shown a vision of a crescent moon, a full moon, a half a moon, and so on and so forth. So they would be able to comprehend what exactly they have to institute. So Rashi says also, shouldn't this mitzvah be given by Bereshis? Bereshis Baral Kim Asher Shemayim V'Sharetz, let me give you a mitzvah, HaChodesh hazeh lachem, and you're going to follow the lunar calendar, the lunar cycle. Why here? They're leaving Mitzrayim. Is it really so important now to give them a calendar of events? Is it so compelling right this minute as they're running away from slavery and persecution to give a calendar? Is it so important? And as the first mitzvah? So the Rebbe says like this. The Eibishter was not only telling Moshe and Aaron that you have to set up a calendar based on the lunar cycle. The Eibishter was telling Moshe and Aaron a vision, a journey, a picture of the journey of the Jewish people. There's going to be a time where you're going to be like a sliver. You're going to be sometimes invisible. You're going to wax, you're going to wane, you're going to think it's all over, we're goners, we're not going to survive. There'll be no more Jewish people. But you will always come back. You'll always come back as that full moon. Even in the most darkness, when everyone will say, they're destroyed, they're over, they're gone, you will always, always come back. He was telling them, this is going to be the journey of the Jewish people. He was giving them a vision of what was to come. And that's why in Bereshis, it says, Vayhi Erev, Vayhi Boike Yom Echad. Now you wake up in the morning, you say my Da'ani, you wash Al Natilas Yadayim, you say it's a new day, I'm starting, I'm all energized. But based on Torah, the day doesn't start when you wake up. The day starts the night before. That's why if a baby is born at night, it's the next day. We light Shabbos candles 18 minutes before sunset, before, the night before. Yom Tovim come in the night before. Yard sites the night before. The Jewish day starts at night. Because sometimes we start in darkness, but we will always, always come to light. Vayhi erev, vayhi boker yom echad. You might think it's dark. You might think you're invisible. You might think you're a sliver. You might think you're a goner. We've been cremated, persecuted, killed, ignored, everything and anything. But from the darkness will always, always come a light. We will always come back as that full moon. And that is what the Eibishter was telling Moshe and Aaron. This is going to be your future. But Vahi Erev, Vahi Baike Yom Echad, you will always come back to the light. And one more beautiful thing the Rebbe says in answer to why do we need a leap year? Because the Rebbe describes Al Pi Chassidus, which I'm not going to go into now, the lunar cycle, the moon, is symbolic of feminine energy, Al Pi Chassidus. The solar energy, the solar cycle is masculine energy. Another time, to go into that. But the Rebbe says there are people that are solar people. There are people that are lunar people. What's a solar person? Steadfast, punctual, walks a straight line, reliable, prompt. It's the guy or girl, they pack your suitcase 3 weeks before your trip. You print out your boarding pass right when you can check in. 4 hours before you have your Uber to take you to the airport. 3.5 hours before your flight, you're at the boarding, you're at the gate, even though you're taking a 1 hour flight from New York to Boston. They're very dependable people. What's the lunar type of person that Rebbe says? It's the very creative souls, brilliant, out of the box. They revolutionize the world because they have such unbelievable ideas. But Heint is Morgan, 8 is 10 o'clock. There's no schedule, there's no rhythm, there's no system. And that's why, by the way, the word lunatic comes from lunar, because you wax, you wane, you're like this, you're like that, if you ever wonder where the word lunatic comes from. The Rebbe says, the world needs both types of energies. You cannot have solar people or solar energy without lunar energy, and you cannot have lunar energy without solar energy. You need both. And it's meant to work in harmony, but it doesn't always work that way. You know, you see couples, he's the sun, she's the moon, she's the sun, he's the moon. You see it in business partners. He's been investing in blue chips his whole life. His grandson comes in and he said, let's do social media, let's do Bitcoin. The Zayda says, this has always worked, we got to stick to this. So the Rebbe says, but there comes every few years a moment in time when the sun and the moon, the solar and the lunar are aligned as one, and there's a synergy, there's a harmony, there's a symphony, the way it's meant to be, to work together. And that's why we have that leap year, to see what is to come when Mashiach comes, when the whole world will have that harmony. There will be no distinction between the sun and the moon and the sun. It'll all be working together in harmony. So this is the reason we have a leap year. One, it defines who we are. That from Chodesh, from Golus, will always come light, Geula. And in our darkest moments, Vahi Erev will always be Vahi Baike. But how do you find happiness? How do you find? It says, it's not so easy to find happiness. And now we don't have that much time to discuss it, but I want to share 2 stories from Rebbetzin Chaim Mushka, which I think will kind of give us a step up to finding joy and happiness in our lives. So one story is that Rebbetzin was asked, what was your best moment of your life, your most precious moment in your life? And she said, this very moment is my most precious moment. And the next story happened with my cousins, Bracha Raskin Richler and Basi Raskin Komar, Betel Raskin from the fish store's daughters. They were in my Zayda's grocery store where Kanz is, Rabbi Yanka Lipsker, and he had to deliver a package to the Rebbetzin, Chaim Mushka on President Street. So he says to the girls, you're going to deliver the package to the Rebbetzin. And they went in the back door. We were always told, I remember when I brought Shalach Manos, I was always told to go to the back door. And the Rebbetzin greeted them beautifully. They gave her the package. She asked them who they are, and they began leaving. And she calls them back. And they said, uh-oh, we might have done, were we not polite? Were we not respectful? And the Rebbetzin says to them, girls, enjoy life. Enjoy life. So when I heard that story and the story of the Rebbetzin, I realized a lesson for myself. Maybe you feel the same. The Rebbetzin was saying happiness, joy, does not come, oh, when I get there, I'll be happy. When I get that, I'll be happy. When I do that, I'll be happy. When I make that, I'll be happy. Happiness is the very moment you're in, because the Eibusher gave you that moment. That's where happiness is. And that's where we have to find happiness, wherever we're found. And the fact that she said, enjoy life, what she was saying, in my mind, you might think differently, enjoy life, because that's it. You have to be happy in your life. You have to enjoy your life, the life that you were given, not the life someone else was given. Enjoy your life, enjoy life. So with that, I have to say that each and every one of us should enjoy life, and every moment should be our best moments. And we know that Adar has the power of transformation, of nullification, and we should see Taka, the Gula Amitis Hashlemus Al Yidei Mashiach Tzidkenu Mematim Asar Tvachim, now, Vahi Erev, Vahi Boiker, Yom Echad. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Freida. Always a treat.
Thank you for the schos. Thank you for the schos.
Of course. Our schos to listen to. It's really
Thank
beautiful.
you. Thank you very much. Always beautiful.
Thank you, Freida.
Thank you, Freida. It was fabulous. Thank you very much. We should all learn our lessons and take them to heart and actually practice them.
Yeah.
We should only have a simchas and good health by everybody.
Amen.
I just,
Freida, that was beautiful.
thank you. I want to just take a moment to wish condolences to Guckel on the loss of her beloved father. And your father should be a good better for all of us, for Klal Yisrael. And you know what? He should bring Mashiach. He should work on that. Guckel.
Amen.
Hey.
Hallelujah. Amen.
You should storm the heavens. And you should
Amen.
you should find the chama and the good memories from your father.
Yes.
Chana Esta, you need to unmute yourself to say your poem.
Muted.
You need to press 6, maybe? I don't know.